Kia ora podcast whānau. We are back and it is good to be here with you all, and if you are listening to this, then obviously happy Easter, or it is the Monday that this will be coming out. So I've just come back from dropping one of our flatmates, long-time friend, and just, someone that I've known pretty much for most of my career down here in Dunedin. Finally got a job up in Auckland, taken off, has been a gym mate, has been an office mate, has been a workmate, and then a workmate at another job as well, and then also became my flatmate for the last 2 years. So Allah, all the best for your future and everything coming your way. I'm pretty sure everyone who is listening to this is going to know that you just absolutely kill wherever you go. So in my voice, if I sound slightly sad, it's not because of her, it's also because I've got a weird way of regulating temperature right now. But happy Easter! Goodness gracious. Everyone should be playing Return of the Mac, basically, because it's about the resurrection of Christ. So we're not talking about Mackins and Macklemore, because everyone knows I don't like that guy. But yeah, we're talking about the big dog, the big homie, came back and sacrificed himself. But then also, if you've watched Narnia, that kind of tells it in a little bit of a different way. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent already. And it's only 2 minutes in, not even 2 minutes in. Then we're tangential. Tangerello. But anyway, it's April. Gosh, it is already April. And the one thing that happened this April, on April 1st, that was not an April Fool's, is basically my career is taking off. I had a paper, so all of you people know in the academic world, what we do is to get clout. You have to publish research that you have been doing. So what you do is you put that together into a manuscript that fulfills the outlines or whatever it is that this particular journal. So we submit into journals, and journals have like outlines, and basically that's how you get it accepted into a journal, and then that's how it reaches a wide spread of people. Apparently, if people actually do end up reading it, and what happens is you submit, you prepare a manuscript of the research that you've been doing, and then you submit it to a journal. That journal will then either accept you, decline you, or accept with like minor revisions. So there's a thing called peer review, and peer review is basically where it goes out to peers or other researchers who are familiar with the research that you are doing, but they don't know who you are. So most of the time it's a blinded process. So it'll go to them. They have no idea who this is. All they're doing is looking at it for the merit of the work that you're doing. And basically, I had 2 reviewers on mine. I won't tell you exactly what it was about or anything like that, because it's still in the review process. It's gone back out again so that we can actually hopefully get it published. And it got rejected. So, failure. And it was interesting. It was quite one of those bittersweet things where I got 2 comments. I got one which was just like, it was the most beautiful thing that I'd ever read. It actually is going to change the way that they do research and blah, 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 blah. And then just like some of the methods that I use. And then the other one was like the complete opposite. The other one was just saying that it was really hard to follow. It's just like, it needs a lot of work. It's actually more than one manuscript and it was weird. It was quite weird because I read the other one first, which was just like, accept this without revisions. Like, it is fine. Let's just go through it. This is the best thing I've read in a very, very long time. And then the other one just pretty much said it was trash. And I guess the weighting kind of went towards the other one. So it didn't get accepted. And that has nothing to do with what I want to talk about today. But at the same time, it was a weird moment for me where, because I had the good luck, it was like a negative sandwich. It was like, we regret to inform you. So anytime that comes up, you know that it's about to be bad news. And then I got brought back up, like the meat in the middle was a very nice review, or it's a very nice comment from the person who reviewed it, just saying it like had a meaningful impact on that person. So whoever that person is, I love you, and I'll probably email you if I can, or I'll email the editor to get in touch with you just to say thank you for taking that time out. As a emerging researcher myself, and like it's awesome to know that you can have that sort of impact on someone who may have been in the game for a while. But then at the same time, the second person, like, it's almost, because I was riding that high of the really, really nice comment, it almost negated the fact that there were probably some really good parts of criticism, of constructive criticism in that second one. So maybe what I'll do is, when I actually go back, and because I was quite upset when I read it. Obviously, when you get let down, it's really hard to take the constructive criticism in, because you just kind of get defensive, because you're just like, you don't think I'm good enough anyway. So what I'm going to do, this is just to let you know, I'm going to take my time, really breathe through it, and then see how things are going. And then I think after that, I'll be able to get into it and, actually make the proper changes, or actually be able to contact that person from a place of wanting to get better. Cool. So just before we get into the full episode, today's just a little bit of an update on how everything has been going. And also we have a couple of things to talk about in terms of what we consider sacrifices, just different things that have come up where I'm just like, wow, that's a different way that we should start thinking about stuff. So we're going to keep this one, I want to keep this one pretty short and sharp, because it is the holidays and I don't expect all you to put some time into this. But something that I saw that I wanted to put out, so if you don't want to listen to the rest of this episode, I think this is the most important. I saw something online, someone shared it, and it basically said, let's normalize not confusing someone's free time with their availability. Now, if you go back maybe 3 solo episodes ago, I talked about how I was online, and that's the first thing. I think it's quite annoying that there's probably ways you can show it or not show it and turn it off, and I'm just an idiot and haven't done that. But when you're online, that's your time to do what you want to do. And people who say oh, you're online and I've messaged you and I can see you posting stories and stuff, it's that's my time. Okay, it takes energy to be able to do that. That's what I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. But then also, there is a difference between availability and free time. So what I've started to do, and what I started to do during my PhD, is I actually started blocking out time where it was free time for me. And that didn't necessarily mean that I was available to go and do other things, because I knew that my energy gets zapped up really, really quickly. So I think we need to get to a point where people understand that just because you are free, it doesn't mean that you want to do something. So it's not that you can demand things of people. And I think this is whether this person's free or not. I think everything should be done without the expectation that someone's just going to drop everything for you. And I know there are a lot of people who kind of owe people different things, and this is going to be very context dependent on the relationship that you have with different people. But if you just go into everything thinking that you are entitled to someone's time, or this person will just drop everything for you in that time or in that moment, then you need to get your head out of your ass and just realize that the world does not revolve around you. Just get some perspective, and I think we as the people who have the time, or we as the people who need to protect our own time, we need to be able to, really stomp that foot down, and not give in to the fact that, other people might try to guilt trip you and just be like, yeah, but you've got all that other stuff. What are you actually going to do with your time? Doing nothing, or actively doing nothing, is so rewarding and actually really, really necessary, especially if you are putting in a work ethic, or if you're just putting in a lot of time to different things. Just because you need that recovery. Recovery is where the growth actually happens. So that's what I just wanted to, that's the biggest thing that I wanted to get out to you today. Just making sure that you're not letting other people ruin that or run that time, because that's the time where you start to resent the things you love. Even though you're doing what you love to do, it's other people driving you insane because of what they expect from you. Basically, I'm just here doing my thing. It is almost 10 minutes into this episode, and I don't know exactly what I've spoken about, but then again, I never do. So here we are with my boy, Open It Up. We know this one. Oh, you already know what's going on. He's just warming you up right now. All right, let's get it, rude boy. You got me preaching on the beat about my brother JC. See the sun up in the heavens just to closer than me. You know I believe that love is growing a tree. Take a fly from the food that I'm stolen with me. He said fly to my boots and now we're falling so free. So I'm flying to my God, that's the Trinity. Gassed up on the love I can't proclaim enough. And now I pray this love. We living days by trust, damn. Living days by trust, damn. Ugh. They got me talking like. Ugh. So that's that collab right there, and that is SG, Who the Sun Sets Free, and you guys all know that I played that song quite a bit on here, but then that is our boy Ray coming through and adding that little bass over the top of that, and yeah, just both of them, extremely just dedicated men to whatever it is that they're doing, just extremely dedicated to their faith, but also just dedicated to being the best that they can be for the communities that they are involved with. And I think the reason why I wanted to play that one today is because both of them are very strong in their faith, and I know that around this Easter time they really started to put out a little bit more content, just really check in on different people, just making sure that we have that sort of faith. And I think faith is something that I've been playing with a little bit recently, and it's not necessarily a faith in a higher being, but just having faith in myself that I can actually do stuff. And I think, there was a lot of times where I'd go into things, and this will, kind of come out a little bit later in the episode, but there were times where I'd go into things without that faith. I'd just go in and just hope. And it's almost like pretty much every single podcast that I come into, I have a plan, or every single sentence, even sometimes. Sometimes I go into sentences and I don't even have an escape. And I just go in and I'm like, please get me out of here. I hope I can get it. And then I just get it. So that's, maybe I think a lot of that is because I just don't have a lot of confidence in myself and what it is that I'm able to do. So, but the problem with that, though, is that because I don't have that confidence, I tend to not engage in anything as opposed to trying to do things to actually get that confidence. It's like when you apply for a job, and people are like, oh yeah, but you need job experience, but you can't get job experience because you've never had a job. So it's almost that sort of thing. It's like you need to put yourself out there to get that sort of experience, or to be able to do that so that you know how you deal in different situations. So yeah, that was another tangent about nothing, but I think it's quite good stuff. It's the stuff that we need to be thinking of a little bit more, and thinking of a little bit more. We're around Easter time, and it has been about one whole damn year of podcasting. So yeah, we started the Sick Ass podcast maybe just a little over a year ago. And it's been one of the best things I think I could have ever done. Obviously, I started off with a co-host, and that kind of just fell apart. Natural causes, I guess, and like a little bit of tension. Like it's something I haven't spoken about. It's something I kind of just glossed over a little bit, and then went solo. I think we just wanted different things. I felt like I was driving a lot of it, and I think probably it was my ego a little bit that got in the way of how everything was being run. But I did feel like we just wanted different things, and I think it impacted our lives a lot more than we thought it would. But for me, I saw it as a really, really cool thing. So we jumped on it a little bit there, and I think I will speak about this a little bit more in the future, just in case you're wanting to know what actually happened to my co-host. But yeah, I was driving it, and I was really willing to take this to the next level and really make it a full-time thing. And we just kind of wanted different things on that front. So as you've been seeing, I've been slowly shifting away from Sick As podcast and kind of moving over to Good to Be Here, just because Sick As was what we had together, and then Good to Be Here would just be basically because that's what I say all the time, and it is good to be here. But yeah, 1 year of podcasting, and I guess when I talk about not having confidence in anything that I do, or having really low confidence, it's interesting because after 1 year of podcasting and people getting to know us through the podcast, things that they say about us is that we're extremely confident, or that, when I say that I'd rather not deal in social situations, people are like, yeah, but you have a podcast, you put yourself out there. So that's been interesting, for real. But the thing is, I get to control this. Like if I wanted to, which I don't, I could edit things. I could stop it. I control the situation right now, right? So like I'm here recording this. You're not even in here right now, but you're listening to it. So I guess the environment that we're in, I'm able to make myself as safe as possible. But I guess where it comes through with the different confidence and different things is that from here, the skills have actually transferred into other things that I do. So when I started the interviews and I started like talking with people, and I just found that I had a natural knack to just talk with them, which is something that I don't do often, and it's something that I would avoid as much as possible. And from there, what I found is that I'm better in social situations, like where it's just one-to-one, and just being able to make people feel comfortable chatting with them, which is like unbelievable. And that's something that we just got through starting a podcast. Another thing, I guess some of the coolest things that have happened through the podcast is that somehow we started helping people with how they live their lives in a multitude of ways, like not necessarily just how we deal with different conflicts and everything like that, but there's sometimes we've had training people on who like know how to do exercise science and all that different stuff. And it's taught people different things there, and they just said, if I'm going to do training, like this is the psychology behind it, this is the type of things that I can do, or it kind of pointed people towards who to go to in terms of practitioners. Obviously, I'm very big on living healthier lifestyle, so a lot of people, I guess, will take some of the tips that I say and actually apply it into their lives, and that's just because I try to use skills, I guess, that'll not just help you with how you're eating and trying to be a bit more healthy that way, but thinking about skills that are transferable across the board. So how can you be better at work? How can you have a better relationship with different people that you meet? How can you be better with yourself? Like all of those different things take little habits that can kind of contribute elsewhere. And I guess another thing is just like, I think the biggest one is really people sharing their own experiences with me. And now I needed to realize, I think quite early, that I can't help everyone. I know that. And I also, a lot of the things that people do bring up can be quite heavy. Like a lot of people tell us personal stories. And it's really, really cool. And sometimes, I think what I've been doing recently is just, not being there. I'm just saying, thank you for sharing that with me. Or thank you for having that trust in the different spaces that we create to be able to share that with us, because at the end of the day, if people are talking, then that's a win overall. Like that starts that. And I know some people have reached out and just said that they've started to go to therapy just because of how I'm so open about it, and how it's a journey that no one really takes you through. Like they just expect you to get sick and go. Whereas it's not that easy. You're placing a lot of your trust in different people to try help you get through that. So it's been bloody awesome. It's been an awesome year, and I'm looking forward to everything else that is to come. And I need you all to support me to help us get through, because we have a really awesome community coming through right now. Like we're very, very strong. We have, our solid listeners every single week, but we need to keep sharing things just to make sure that everyone's actually getting what's happening, because, I don't care about the reach in terms of how many likes or how many followers or anything like that, but there have been times where people have shared stuff and a friend of that friend has listened to it or has seen it, and it's changed the way that they thought, or it's changed the perspective that they had, or it's actually motioned them into different actions. So if we can keep that going, then I think that's probably one of the biggest wins that we can get with this podcast. And as I say, I guess another big win is that I get to talk to really cool people, and people actually know that the podcast is here, and that I'm willing to talk to different people and to help share stories. And I'm guessing I'm really thankful that people trust me to be able to do that. But I'm also really thankful to the other people who, to you for showing up and listening every week, because, without you, I'm just talking to my camera into a headset. But yeah, I always am talking into my camera into a headset. And if one or none listen, then that's also fine, because I get to kind of organize my thoughts as I go through this. So yeah, cool. And I guess something that struck me with all of this is that I did something to start this podcast, which I don't do very often, and that's going all in. So I, dropped a lot of money on it. To be able to do it, I bought all the gear. I learned how to do all the gear. I learned how to do everything that we needed to do. And usually, with something that's new, just because I don't have that confidence, I'll have like 1 foot out the bed. When it's like you're trying to regulate your temperature and you just put 1 foot out just in case. Or you're always keeping your foot in the door just in case an opportunity doesn't quite go your way, so you have something else as a backup. And I was never one of those people who could just head down and just fucking go for it. Just absolutely shank that shit and get in. But what I did with this, and I think it's because I knew that this would kind of fulfill my purpose in life. I knew that this would be part of what I needed to do to actually be able to do what I thought I was placed on this earth to do. And I thought I was placed on this earth to help people, or to just make people smile, or just to help people think slightly differently, or just feel like they're not going to be alone. Because it's really cool having a friend, or it's really cool having someone that is riding along with you, which is something that I didn't really feel I had a lot of the time. So, I guess that's kind of why I thought going all in is not just for me. Like this is for everyone. So I'm super stoked with that. And I guess for me, the problem is, and I talk about this in the relationship episode that we had like ages ago, like yonks ago, but I feel like connection or building a connection with different people can actually be quite debilitating. Just because I think the vulnerability that you have to be able to make that connection with someone else. So I think that's something that maybe this is why the podcast grew to where it is because I come on and people say, we respect your vulnerability. The thing is, like, my vulnerability, sometimes it's just me telling the truth, which I guess to some people is like being extremely vulnerable. But like, I get to show you like the inner workings of how I am. And I guess when it gets a bit more intimate, when you're like with another person, you know, you get to show how you operate. And I guess what that does is you're kind of just like, you know, this is all of me. This is how I work. This is like the internal stuff of me. You know, is this going to work? Do you even like me anymore? Will this work? And that can be quite scary, and that can be, you know, maybe a reason why commitment is quite difficult. And what I found with that is that I would distract myself from a lot of the things that would give me that commitment, which would give me, you know, a reason to step out if I had to. So that's overall, this is kind of like a whole bunch of things. This is commitment on a grander scale, not necessarily just relationships. But that was 100% of the reason, because I was so scared of failing I was so scared that my inner dialogue to myself, which is you won't do well anyway, would always come true. And I kind of gave myself that out because I'm just like, well, I wasn't fully committed anyway, so I could just kind of step out when I was ready. So that's one thing that fucking after a year of doing a podcast that I was very, very nervous about to start, you know, it's sick. That's so cool. It's so cool because it kind of puts all of the doubts that I ever had about myself, you know, and especially for this one little thing, it puts that to rest, and that we're here to stay, and that other people, you know, probably understand exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to having those, you know, inability to connect with different people, or feeling like it's quite a scary thing to have that connection. And I guess what I'm trying to lead in after this is something ticked in my mind that I live by, saying you just need to be exceptional and you need to push through this types of stuff that make you feel uncomfortable. And I was re-listening to my episode of Cheyenne, and she was talking about how she just needs to get out of her comfort zone, because it's out of your comfort zone where you'll start to grow, and it's out of your comfort zone where you start to learn new things about yourself. And this is, you know, it's been, the more that I paid attention to that, or the more that I meditated on that, the more that I realized, God damn, it's so true. Like, basically, I try to hide from the world a lot of the times. I try to distract myself from all of the different things that scare me, and you know, committing myself to things, or having to get help from different people, and all these different things where it requires other people to be part of the team, just because of, you know, me always feeling like I had to do everything by myself, and that no one else could actually help along with it, because no one could ever understand me, you know, all those sorts of things, you know, just that running narrative in my head. I stayed comfortable. You know, I would listen to the same playlists all the time because I knew what song was going to come next. I'd watch the same movies over and over again because I knew exactly what the plot was, and I wasn't going to get a surprise anywhere. But, you know, at times, the best part of your day is the times where you weren't sure if something was going to happen, or you weren't sure if the outcome was going to be positive, but you put your head down, you tried to be as exceptional as possible, and you got through it on the other end, and what you've told yourself in that moment is that you can do it. So that's been something that I've really been trying to work with myself, and just really trying to not revert back to all of my comfort states, so trying to take the path of least resistance, because I'm scared. So, you know, really, really just digging into the deeper stuff of all of that sort of stuff. And I think it's quite weird, because I was thinking about this even when it comes to my training. Like, even when I train, I'm one of those people who can like just absolutely push myself to a point where like I basically get buried, like I have my funeral and then I come back later. Like I'm basically the Undertaker when it comes to training, where I will just sweat till blood's coming out of my pores, I swear. And I could be half blind, like I could be straight up Stevie Wonder, and still just keep going. If that whistle goes, I'm gone too. I just have this weird freaking drive to just go for it and just go until we stop. And I'm not one of those people who likes to give up. And I think that's because I like being uncomfortable. And I know that on the other side of discomfort and pushing it, obviously within means, within correct means and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to be better off for it. And it's weird because we literally had these sessions, and it's something, I guess, when you get into the rugby field or when you get into team sport modes, just kind of showing it out there that I play prems for rugby. Get up, let's go. Anyway, but we had a training with so our strength and conditioning coach for our team. His name is Murder, so we call him Murder, and that is a nickname, not necessarily what he does for a hobby. Well, I hope not, because I don't want to show up to training and get you shanked. But anyway. So if you're a Dunedin local, I'm just going to shout him out here. Bods by Murder on what's that thing called? Instagram. On Instagram. But yeah, basically he would always say to us, it's just like, yeah, this is the stuff that sucks, but you'll be better off for it. Or on the other side of all of this, when you have gone through this multiple times, this will start to become your new norm. And on the field, like, it makes all the gameplay, all that sort of stuff, it makes that more fun because you have a stronger foundation to build off. But it's one of those things, as soon as you find it tough, pushing through that is actually, or like, as soon as you find there's some sort of barrier to you actually wanting to do what you're going to do, that's probably because that's the stuff that you need to do. For example, when I first started thinking about going to counseling, I came up with every single excuse that I could have to not go. And it's because the more barriers that I set for myself to not go, the more I realize this is just me trying to get out of going to something that's going to help me. It's just like when people don't go to fitness training, and they don't go to fitness training because they're unfit, and then they're going to go, and fitness training will be hard. That's so backwards. You go to fitness training to increase your fitness. It's like, the more I tell myself that I can deal with everything by myself, so I don't need a counselor, it kind of puts me further into a hole. So it's quite weird how we get into these little vicious cycles in our head. So maybe that's an exercise that you could do as listeners, is start to think about what are things that you've been putting off, because you're thinking about all the different work, you're thinking about all the different steps that you have to go through for it to become better at the end, that you end up rationalizing why you don't need to do it. So that could be something to think about. And that's been something that I've been thinking about more and more. If I wake up in the morning and I don't want to wake up, what is it that I'm trying to hide from? Is it the fact that I didn't get enough sleep and I'm scared, I didn't sleep well, so I'm going to have a poor day, blah, blah. Is that the real reason? Or is it because there's something in that day that I do not want to face? Or is it because, I'm just making up excuses for myself to stay comfortable and to not take on everything that I need to face to actually help myself get to a better position? So those are just things, that's deep, but those are things to think about. And those are things we should always think about because, I think we're all here to try get somewhere else. And if not for yourself, then maybe for someone else. Maybe you'll get a skill where you come into contact with someone else and they will be able to benefit from that. Just a thought. Just a light thought that gets quite heavy on my mind, if you know what I mean. But yeah, like I said before, if you're coming up with, if you have that split second and thinking about, oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't go, all that sort of stuff, especially with the way that my mind works, like people tell me all the time that when they see me looking in different places that they can hear my mind working. Like it's like someone on a typewriter, with one of those little caps, and they're smoking a cigarette and they're doing, and it's like, have to push it back. That's my mind, and everyone can hear it, and they're doing taxes and stuff, but like, that stuff goes on. So the more time that I give myself, the more that I can come up with like a feature-length film on all the reasons why I shouldn't, with a music score, credits, and everything, because that's just how my mind works. So before my mind actually gets to stepping, I need to cut it off and just go do it. Right, what's next on the agenda? Oh yeah, so just one more thing to talk about here, and I guess this is
Something that comes up quite a bit when I was talking with a bunch of friends, and I was just thinking about how generationally we're so different, and how I'm just super privileged to be where I am. And obviously, I came from a very poor background. Well, not poor, like we had a lot. We had a lot in terms of resources. We had a lot in terms of intellect to be able to use whatever resources that we had to get to where we needed. And my dad and my mum, they would hustle hard so that I could get what I needed. Different rugby boots and different activities that I wanted to be part of. And I guess, not necessarily the best education, but it's just being able to understand the reason why we were getting educated. And just a lot of really deep lessons, I guess, that we were taught while we were growing up. And we were thinking about, I was actually talking with a group of, younger people coming through, and they were talking about sacrifices that they're making, to become like a powerlifter or a bodybuilder. And I just remember that grind or that mindset that I had. And it's like, I'm sacrificing like my social life and all that sort of shit. But at the end of the day, I was only sacrificing to benefit myself. And it was really weird because all of the different things that I was doing, I was talking about sacrificing, and I was thinking about, being the most dedicated person, but only to myself. And it actually had me quite upset when I was thinking about all the different sacrifices that literally my parents had to make for me. And it's a tricky situation, and there's a lot going on, and there's deeper stories to all of that sort of stuff. There's more layers to the cake, but they actually sacrificed a lot so that they could think about where it is that we as children would end up. And I think this just shows the difference in thinking between our generation and the generation before us, where they are always thinking intergenerationally, or they delayed gratification. So everything that they did was for the future, and everything that we do now is kind of to see, how much clout we can get within the next 24 hours. We are the types of people who think about posting a post and then just seeing how many likes it gets, whereas they were the types of people who, would start something and not see the fruits of it until like 20 years later, 21 years later, when their child starts to do, everything that they were kind of made to do. So anyway, I started thinking about sacrifices in that sort of way. And I think that the reason that they came up is because I was talking, I like that song Sacrifices by Dreamville. And I was thinking about sacrifices and different sacrifices that people have made so that I could be where I am. A lot of people talk about privilege, and people probably wouldn't put me in the class of privileged because obviously, we grew up in the hood. But I was so privileged to have parents, family members who either left their home to be, where they ended up for better opportunities in the future, or just, pretty much gave up their lives so that their children could have better lives. And I really appreciate everything that my family have done for me. And I may not be the most grateful child, or I may not be the person who shows it the best, but I'm super grateful for all of that sort of stuff. And it's definitely been part of making me who I am. And I'm going to leave that there. But anyway, so these are just more thoughts to think about. So moving on to the last thing before we end it up here is basically, I was thinking about how it's been one whole year of podcasting, and how a lot of the skills that we had, we don't just come on and chat and just put it out there, but there's a lot of skills that, have some sort of transfer over to different things. So what I did was I put out a call to everyone else on the hotline to say, what are skills that you find transferable, or things that you should find that we should be maybe teaching at school or something, or teaching across the board so that people can have it, and then they can be a bit more flexible, I guess, when it comes to different things. So instead of being specialists, like what are some skills that we can to be generalists? And what we got across the board, which was, I think, really indicative of how all of this stuff is going to work. But we have Brittany who says friendliness, and that's absolutely true. Friendliness in different contexts is going to look different. But if we're taught how to be compassionate, or if we're taught how to be kind to different people, that's just going to be something that you can go into nearly any space, read an energy, and be able to reciprocate with that energy. Do you match that energy, or just from these different encounters, should I come in, a little bit hot? Should I back off a little bit, fire and ice? Trying to get that balance right. and just thinking a little bit more about all that sort of stuff, so actually just being friendly, and a lot of being friendly is just, just being there and not being judgmental, I guess, when it comes to dealing with different people. So yeah, thank you for that, Britt. Ola says listening, and that is active listening as well. So all of you kind of listening to this, you're probably zoning in and out because I have the most boring voice known to man, no cap. But a lot of the time, when you are listening to someone, are you one of those people who is listening so that you can talk, or are you actually listening because you want to understand? That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave that there. Communication by Willis. And Willis, absolutely. Communication. Communication is key. People say that over and over and over and over and over again, but when people talk about it, they're always kind of talking about communication from the point of the verbalizer, and we're not really thinking about the listener in that as well, because it's active. It's active both ways. Just because you are listening doesn't necessarily mean you are on the defense or you are just receiving, because that is active. You're thinking about how that can go in and how that can be actioned as well. So that's all key as part of that communication. April says exactly the same thing, communication skills. So being able to verbalize, or even being able to read different people's body language. That's something that I've thought about a little bit more. There are some people who just don't understand. I can't read a room. Someone will come in and they'll just be like, pretty much just like exhibit A asshole, and they just don't understand why people don't want to do what they're saying, and they're just like, oh, you guys just don't listen. And it's like, nah, we just don't listen to you. So all those different things, Caroline says clear communication and organization, helpful across work, flatting, and social life. That is exactly true. If you're dealing with different people, and we're always going to be dealing with different people, there are going to be different levels of how you deal with different people, but there are also going to be different expectations, different roles, different responsibilities that everyone needs to fulfill. And if you don't have that clear communication line, or if you don't have some sort of organization about how, I don't want to say a hierarchical structure, but maybe for different activities, there are people who lead it. And there are people who support, and then there are people who kind of just go about their business and do it, and maybe they don't need to be involved with it. If you don't have a clear line of communication for all those different things, then no one's going to know what they're doing, and everyone's just going to either double up on different things, and the work like economy or the work efficiency actually starts to decrease. So yeah, absolutely. Sophie Howden, how are you, girl? Haven't heard from you in ages, but anyway, relationship building with all ages. That's absolutely true. I do find that. I find that I'm way better at people who are quite a bit older than me and quite a bit younger than me, but I really suck with people my age. And I think that's just because of the different environments that I'm put in. I don't actually deal with people my age too often, but the people who are older than me, obviously all my colleagues are basically in their 50s, so I'm really, really good at talking with them. And I guess when I was younger, my family would say that I had an old soul, whatever that meant, because I still can't grow facial hair. But anyway, I think being able to, be applicable, or being able to communicate with different people across, I think it's very, very important. And it just means that you start to broaden your horizon on what you know as well, because you're having different experiences from people from different eras. So yeah, really cool thought there. Cam Younger says discipline. I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Cool. People skills, communication, and listening. That is from Charlotte Matheson over there in the States. Communication skills. Oh my gosh. Yeah, basically. Oh, Tiana, this is something nice and new. Deep breaths. Absolutely important. So if you are able to regulate your breathing, it works for a bunch of things. So in different contexts, pretty much we're all going to get stressed. There's going to be some sort of stress, and that can be whether you are exercising, exercise is a stressor, whether you are doing a presentation, whether you are jumping on to do a podcast. All those different things are going to induce some sort of stress or some sort of excitability in your body. If you're not able to regulate your breath, what's going to happen is that your physiology or your body will start to take off without you actually being aware of everything that's going on. There's a reason why people who do Vipassana, like meditation, why they focus on the breath, is because if you're focusing on your breath, you're actually controlling how everything starts to work. And if you control your breath, or if you do different parts of your breath, you're controlling different parts of your nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system, you have like your parasympathetic and your sympathetic, which is one parasympathetic is going to be long and start to really relax you a little bit. And then sympathetic is when you start to fight and flight and just start to get a little bit into that. So, for all of those different things, if you're able to regulate yourself by controlling your breath, then you're actually in control of most of the rest of your body. So I think that's really, really important. And that's probably something that I need to talk to more people about, because I still breathe through my mouth. And I know a lot of people who are really focused on the breath just gasped right then because I said what I said. And I did say it. So yeah, really appreciate everyone for writing in. Appreciate you all as usual. And if you could please help me by sharing a lot of the episodes that we are putting out. It just helps get that extra little bit of reach. And we've got plenty of reach as it is, but I just feel like in the future, I really want to start helping more and more people. And the more people we have on board, the more we're actually able to reach out to different people. So I do know that I have a few plans in the pipelines that I want to do in terms of being able to gift some things, but also just having more people contact the podcast. So if you want to, send me a voicemail, send me a message on Instagram, and I can get it out there so that we can help each other out. Otherwise, join the Facebook, which is Sick As Podcast. Follow me on Instagrams on Sick As Podcast, as well as Troy Ruhe. And just thinking, man, if you can get fucking good at something, do it. If you have the opportunity to be able to do that, do that. But other than that, what have I spoken about today? Absolutely nothing. Stay safe this week. Please travel safely. We do know that over the public holidays here in New Zealand, and probably internationally, but especially here in New Zealand, road toll does start to increase a little bit. So please just take your extra time. We don't have to be anywhere too quickly. Look after yourselves, look after your families, look after your loved ones, and look out for me as well if you do see me, or if you do want to flick me a message, just to let me know how everything's going. But that has been another episode of the podcast. It's been great to be here. I love you all, and thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, and you know the rest. Get it right. It's G. I'm back to back upon the flows. I praise my God, Emmanuel, the Savior, so he came and saw me. Oh yeah. You got me preaching on the beat about my brother JC. See the sun up in the heavens, it's so closer than me. You know I believe that love is growing and tree. Take a fly from the food that I'm stolen with me. He said fly to my booth and now we're falling so free. So I'm fly to my God, that's the Trinity. Gassed up on the love I can't proclaim enough. But now I pray this love. We live in days by trust, damn. Living days by trust, damn. Much love, up the Canes.